Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. I got to remember to upload the podcast in a more timely manner. As I'm recording this one right now, I realize, I've got one on the back burner that I haven't even uploaded yet. It's aired on the radio, but I haven't uploaded yet. I'm getting sidetracked, as I normally do here on Geek Therapy Radio. I'm actually recording on location right now, so if you hear the quality is a little bit different, I've got my Samson Meteor mic set up on a desk here, and my guest this week is, I say Kreipe.
Kreipe.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm confused because I thought it was Kreipe, but then my phone said, sending text message to Ryan Kreipe, or Kreipe. I was like, okay, who do I trust, Google, or I guess I'll trust the flesh, not the robot. But thank you for coming on the show today, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So where are we at right now, Ryan?
So we are at Braes Resale and Consignment. We are located at 10814 South Post Oak at the corner of South Post Oak and Willow Bend on the southwest side of Houston.
Awesome. And don't worry if you didn't catch that. You're just listening to the radio. This is a good segue to plug subscribing to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, because in those podcast descriptions I always put all the pertinent information. So if we're mentioning websites, if we're mentioning addresses and things like that, I always include it in the description. So if you're just listening on the radio right now, search for the Geek Therapy Radio podcast in your favorite podcast app. Just look for the red, white, and black color scheme. That's how you know you've got Geek Therapy Radio. And I've been on Spotify now for the past few months. A few listeners have requested, hey, why come you on Spotify? Well, I is now. So feel free to go to Spotify and search for Geek Therapy Radio, red, white, and black color scheme. That's how you know you're me. So in the past on Geek Therapy Radio, I have brought up a point of, I don't know if concern is the right way to put it, but I've had a lot of people ask me and ask other people, on YouTube, so Lazy Game Reviews, This Does Not Compute, and an 8-Bit Guy and stuff like that. Where do you guys source your computers? I know that big channels like 8-Bit Guy and stuff like that, they have lots of donations. People say, hey, I've got this rare IBM 5150, can I just send it to you? But you and me right now, odds are listening right now, aren't huge million sub YouTube channels. We're just, enthusiasts and collectors that are trying to do our best to scrap together what we can. And I've mentioned a couple times that there's a couple good places to do that, and it's one reason why I'm at Braes Resale right now. The first good place to do that, in no particular order, are electronics recyclers. So if you live in a big city, it's even better. But even if you live in a small city, look on your Google Maps, type in electronic recyclers, and then just go pay a visit and see what they got. If you've been wanting a vintage CRT monitor, but obviously they don't sell them at Best Buy anymore, look up electronics recycling. They might have old computers. They might have old 386s, 486s, whatever, old Macs. But another great place to do that is don't cower at this, don't sneer, but get plugged in at your local church. Because a lot of times churches are involved either directly, they have their own kind of resale shop to help the community, or they're involved in a collective like Braes is. They have resale shops, which is, I don't want to equate it directly to Goodwill. To me, it's kind of more. How would you say it differs from Goodwill a bit? I think it helps the local community better, probably, than.
Absolutely. We definitely spend a lot more time working with actual people in our communities. We have the clothing ministry that we have here at the resale shop, to where people can come in, and we've had all sorts of people come in, from people who have lost their homes, people who have been flooded out with recent floodings,
right,
and then also houses catching fire. So they've literally lost everything that they own, and they're able to come in and they're able to get clothing that can take care of their immediate needs,
right,
and hopefully get them back on their feet.
Right. Do you do a lot of consignment? I see on the wall it says consignment. Do people do consignment?
We don't do a lot of consignment anymore, and actually we don't do it at all, because we've been working with estate sale dealers, and they finish their estate sales, and after they're completed, they give us everything that they have left.
Right.
And just so much stuff has been coming in. Even for this week, for instance, we have 3 estates coming in.
Wow.
One of the estate sale dealers, she works with only multimillionaire families, and some of the stuff that just comes in is just really, really nice. Nice furniture, nice knickknacks, or books. We actually had a first edition Count of Monte Cristo come through.
Wow!
And I mean, just beautiful book.
Yeah.
And just not something you would normally, find on a regular. So just really cool things, and really you just never know what's going to come through here.
So we're coming up to the end of this first segment. We'll touch on the really cool things part of it coming up in the next segment. But I also want to talk about in the next segment how, let's say someone comes in and they find, a vintage computer, vintage electronic, that they've been searching for, whatever. In the next segment, we're going to talk about where that money goes and how it helps others in the community. It's one thing, obviously, to sell things that help people get on their feet, but then that money also goes to help more people, and I definitely want to talk about that. I'm here with Ryan Kreipe at the Braes. I don't even know how to say it. Braes
Resale.
Braes Resale. I will put links into the description to the address. But there's more Geek Therapy Radio coming up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've still got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. I'm here with Ryan Kreipe of Braes Resale Shop here in Houston, Texas. And remember, if you're just listening to us on the radio, you've just come back from the break, you haven't heard the first segment, subscribe to the podcast, Geek Therapy Radio Podcast, in your favorite podcast player. Just look for the red, white, and black color scheme, because in the podcast descriptions, I put all the pertinent information, websites, addresses, kind of links to things that we're talking about in the show. So that's a good plug for the Geek Therapy Radio Podcast and your favorite podcast player. At the end of the first segment, I wanted to get into, first and foremost, before we get into, kind of the earthly stuff, like a cool computer. Like if you found an old IBM 5150, yes, that's a cool earthly thing, but that's just an earthly thing. You're not going to be buried with it. But that earthly thing can actually help others in need. I wouldn't say anybody needs a vintage 286 computer. You're not going to be doing, you're not getting on Facebook with an old 286. But somebody who's interested in that, who wants that enough, who has a collection, can get that. Ryan, what happens to the money if someone finds a computer like that at Braes? How does that go to bless other people?
Well, we have our food pantry located at Willow Meadows Baptist Church at 4300 West Belfort, and Braes Interfaith Ministries is our kind of parent company, so to speak, and we have the food pantry there. And what the money does from here is go over there, and for every dollar that we make in profit, we actually can purchase $27 worth of food from the Houston Food Bank.
Wow.
So as you can see just right there, it just so much is able to be given back to the community and help people in need. And it could be something as simple as a loaf of bread for someone, or a whole 2 weeks worth of food. So it just depends on what their specific needs are. And then also we have the clothing ministry, to where people can get the clothing that they need, whether it be short term or long term. We actually also work with people who've gotten out of prison, and we have the suits that they can come in and
interviews and stuff?
Go back for interviews,
yeah,
and whatnot, to kind of help them get back into society and make sure that they're successful.
That's really cool. So I want to talk about some some geeky stuff here. Well, and we will definitely get back to, actually, but while I'm thinking about it, I don't want to forget. Sorry if it seems like I'm scatterbrained here, listeners, but if you're a longtime listener to the show, you know how this goes. How can somebody who's listening maybe in Chicago or Florida or California or Europe somewhere or South America, if they were so inclined, is there a way for people to just donate to the ministry, donate to helping others without? If they can't get to Houston, into this location, is there a way for them to help online somewhere?
Absolutely. So we have braesresale.com, and that's spelled BRAES, resale, RESALE. .com. At the bottom of the homepage there, you'll see a QR code that you can go directly to our PayPal account. And those funds do not go to a CEO who is making tons of money.
Right.
Those funds do not go towards frivolous business practices.
Right.
They go straight towards the community and to keep the lights on here at Braes Resale,
Right.
and then purchasing food for people through our food pantry. So definitely, if you have the opportunity and have that available for us, we would love to have your donation to help support the ministry and keep us afloat, especially in these COVID times where we just aren't able to have as many people coming into the shop as we might normally do.
We will definitely repeat that later, but one more time, the website for this segment
is Braes Resale. So that's BRAESRESALE.com.
And the link will, of course, be in the podcast description. So the other day, and what kind of spurred on this interview is, like I talked about in the previous segment, people ask me and people ask other people who collect computers, how do you even source these computers? They're not just growing on trees, and more kind of end up in landfills, unfortunately, each year, every day. It's easier said than done to just go find an old 90s or 80s computer. So one of the ways I said is get plugged into your local resale shop, and that could very well include walking into your local church and shaking hands and meeting people and getting plugged in that way. So Ryan has been my guy. Like, he goes on these estate collections, I guess, and I said, hey, if you ever see anything that might be of interest to me, it's just like a geek who likes old computers, just like, if you wouldn't mind, like, just taking a picture of it or sending me a text of it and see. And there have been some things that I have kind of turned down, partly because every time I get something, Sarah's like, what's this? Another computer? Do you need another computer? I'm like, I don't have this one yet. This was on the list. I don't have a Mac from the early 90s. So
need is an arbitrary word too,
Need, exactly. I completely get it. It's not like I argue with her about the word need. It's like, I know I don't need it, but it's something that, I collect things. Like, there's worse hobbies that people could be into. And she's a trooper. She just, she has to do... She has to be mindful of how much space we have in our house. And so sometimes Ryan will send me a picture of this like giant like server tower or something like that, and be like, or like a giant Pentium from 1997, Pentium 3, whatever, but it's in this gigantic, like, huge tower case, like so much bigger than ATX. I mean, it's like a 4-foot case. Anybody listening from the era kind of knows what I'm talking about, with those gigantic towers that are nearly as big as your desk. I'm like, nah. Do I really want a Pentium 2 or 1 that's bigger than my son, and it's gonna be bigger than my son than for years. So anyways, but so most recently you had a laptop. A laptop was great because it's a laptop. It's small, doesn't take much space. I can put it right on there on the shelf. But the most recent thing was a Macintosh Performa 400, which I believe is a rebranded Macintosh LC or LC2, which was more geared towards learning institutions and schools and such like that. But at the time, Apple, or Macintosh, I don't know if it was called Apple back then, Macintosh wanted a more budget-friendly, kind of lower consumer-end computer to offer customers. And in 1992, 3, and 4, I believe, is the years these were out. This was their kind of ultimate budget Apple System 7 desktop computer, but it's in a really cool form factor, and it is from an era of Mac that I haven't visited since I was a child, and I've always had a special soft spot for this era of Mac because I would frequently get in trouble in elementary school, and I would have to go sit in the one chair in the back, which was facing an old Macintosh, like with System 7 on it. And I just remember clicking around trying to play Oregon Trail in the built-in golf game or whatever. Not that I would try to get in trouble so I could go play on the Mac, because I think it was the only Mac of that caliber in the school. The computer lab had Apple IIs and Apple IIes and like 2 Apple IICs, which is crazy. That's what I started with, but a modern Mac, quote unquote, the early 90s, was only in this teacher's classroom and the history teacher's classroom, and I would get in trouble and I would go sit in that chair facing away from the class, but looking at that Mac screen and playing games on the Mac. So the deal I made with Ryan is, all right, you've been my hookup guy for a year or so now, whatever. When I asked you at church, I was like, I gotta repay Braes in some way, and if I can help bring some awareness in some maybe generate some traffic, hopefully, to Braes Resale Shop and the Interfaith Ministries, and help feed. If what I'm doing here can help feed needy families, or give that recovering convict a chance to step out on the right foot and get a job and be self-sufficient and take pride in what he or she is doing. If this little radio show and this podcast can help, I'm honored to do it. I see that we are running out of time in this segment. There's plenty more to get to. I'm going to ask about some like politically correct or PG maybe rated weird stuff you might have stumbled across, and I know there's probably some.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So there's more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about some interesting and maybe some weird stuff that has been found at estate sales. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny, here. I am sitting with Ryan Kreipe of Braes Resale Shop and Braes Ministries, and we are talking about kind of vintage computers and cool stuff that's kind of that kind of flows through the resale shop. He's my quote-unquote hookup guy when it comes to if he's at an estate, whatever, cleaning out an estate or an estate sale or cruising around in a big truck. If he finds an old computer that, let's face it, most people don't care. Most people would see that, like, oh, look at that old computer from 1994 and just toss it. But there are plenty of people who are enthusiasts who think that's really cool, and hey, maybe take a picture of that, let me know you found it. That's definitely me, because I know he goes on these resale things, and I know there's people out there who have held on to these old Macintosh Performas and these old 286 and 386 laptops and computers, and I'm part of the demographic that's very fascinated with it. So, one more time, the contact information, and by one more time, I mean we'll repeat it a couple more times in the show. Ryan, how can people get in touch with the resale shop? How can they visit the retail shop? And how can they donate if they are not anywhere near Houston, Texas?
So, braesresale.com, that's spelled BRAES, resale, RESALE.com. The contact information is also there if you want to contact the store directly through telephone or email. We also have our shop on there as well, so you can go on there and see kind of the cool stuff that have come through the shop and whatnot. So that stuff is available. And we also have a QR code at the bottom of that for donating to Braes Interfaith Ministries or Braes Resale directly to help support the ministries and support the people of our community.
Awesome. And again, I'll have all that in the podcast description. Is there a way, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew or put my foot in my mouth, but is there a way, if someone was so inclined to maybe on a case-by-case basis have something shipped to them if they find out that, hey, Braes has this, like, they found this TV or something that, like a Sony, what do you call it? Maybe that's a bad example, because a Sony, like the widescreen CRT Sony TVs, I want to say it's a Vega something, C900, whatever. There's a CRT monitor that is just the crown jewel of like retro gamers who want to plug. They're not going to plug in their NES to their flat screen TV because it messes up with the resolution and doesn't look great. They want the CRT. So if for some reason, something like that or something of interest, maybe a little lighter, that didn't weigh 75 pounds, comes through the shop, is there a case-by-case basis that they could kind of have it shipped to wherever they are?
Yeah,
is there
definitely. We definitely are willing to ship. We do sell directly from our website, and then based on freight or weight, we are able to ship anywhere in the global arena. So we definitely don't want to limit people in what their appetite is.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely want to be able to support that. So if you have a specific need or want, you can always shoot us an email and say, hey, put me on the wish list for this specific thing, and
right.
we can definitely keep an eye out for that. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, so here's a good start or a good lead question. How many estate, what would you call them? I don't want to call them digs, because I'm thinking like archaeology and like artifacts you might find in these things, and I don't want to be gauche about it because it's a family who suffered a loss and everything. But that being said, how often do you go on these missions, so to speak?
We usually go out at least once a week. Sometimes we'll pick up more than one estate. Other times we'll pick up just one. A lot of times we get so much that we have to store it in storage around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go pull that stuff out. So on slower weeks, we do definitely pull from storage and whatnot. But definitely, I would say at least once a week we are pulling from at least one estate, and they could be anywhere in Houston. We've gotten some from high-end area of Bunker Hill. We've gotten Pearland. We've gotten Friendswood, and all the way down to Sugarland. So definitely a wide variety of people and just helping them out as well. It's a lot of times, especially with these estates, it's difficult when they're having to deal with that loss that they just don't know, and they're overwhelmed by what their grief is, and sometimes just unloading this onto someone else is a relief for them as well. So
I can completely understand that. I think you get to a certain age and you kind of you've experienced loss in your family, and I know when my dad died, at first you're taking care of things, but then you just realize there's so much to take care of. Like, it's almost like whenever you watch, my dad was not a hoarder. I'm not saying my dad was a hoarder, but when you watch that show Hoarders, there's a part of your brain, every time I watch that show, I'm just thinking, man, why not just torch the thing and then burn it to the ground and then bulldoze? Like, why not just, it seems like it's easier just to do that than it would be to work through it all and kind of help that. But that's a completely different subject. Hoarding is a completely different subject. But just that feeling of, when you have a loved one die or a friend die, and now you step into their home, and they're not hoarders necessarily, but somebody's life, there's a lot to somebody's life. There's a lot of tonnage left behind in someone's life, and it's like, how do I have time to go through all this wardrobe? I don't have time to go through and deal with every one of these TVs and everything like that. On a personal note, and I don't know if I should go here or not, but I will, because it's my story. And it's okay now, but after I got divorced in 2016, it was just a one-bedroom apartment, but I was like, in that moment of hurt, I don't want to deal with any, like, the TVs and the video game systems and stuff like that. It's like, I don't even want to go back there to deal with it. It doesn't matter to me right now in this grief. Somebody else just take care of that, and I guess it's the same way when you've had a loss. So it is a relief to a lot of families sometimes to say, hey, Braes, I know you can do good things with this in the ministry. I know you could help out the local community, not just with Uncle Bob's old couch that could bless somebody, but maybe something you might find in here might bring some money that could help and be, buy 27 times more food per dollar, from the food pantry. But that being said, it helps the family, helps the community. But there's been some stuff that you've come across. We don't have to get truly, you can get as specific as you want, and we'll keep it PG here. I'll start with this one. Have you ever come across something where you're like, we just got to call the police. We can't touch this, or something like, I don't know what this is, that we got to call the authorities?
I've had a few file cabinets that I've come across that I just didn't want to go into, just because of the people that we were getting stuff from. And a lot of times when things are locked, I just leave them behind. It's
Right.
just, you just never know what personal item might be in there.
Yeah.
And then, also I try to respect people's privacy as well. There might
Right.
be social security numbers or driver's license. And we actually had a federal judge recently that we had gotten some stuff from, and it was really cool that he had a federal judge's badge.
Oh, cool.
And I didn't even know that they had given those out.
Wow.
Obviously I don't run in those realms, but but it was beautiful. It was just absolutely beautiful. And we ran across that, and obviously we ran back to the Sun and gave them that instantly, because that's a keepsake that you cannot replace.
Absolutely.
But it was just really, really cool. But nothing completely taboo or anything like that.
Right.
Mostly just respecting people's privacy and understanding that there are certain things they don't want to discuss. So
Yeah. What would you do if you came across a large firearms collection in a safe, everything, or like you could see what's in there? Not one of those kind of steel vaults where you can't see anything, but that there's probably thousands of dollars worth of firearms, but that's not something that Braes is really gonna. Maybe there's some you feel icky about selling guns to help feed people or something like that. What do you do if you come across something like that?
Well, in Texas, and I can't speak for the rest of other states, but I do know you have to have an FFL to purchase or to sell firearms. So we are not able to do any of that kind of stuff. I personally am very comfortable with firearms. I do a lot of competitions with speed shooting and stuff like that. So if I come across a weapon, the first thing I always do is check it, clear it, make sure everything is safe before anybody else comes in contact with it, to make sure that is a safe firearm, just in case somebody who doesn't have any knowledge of firearms can pick that up and look at it and inspect it. So, yeah. But we have run across quite a few firearms in our pickings. So lots of fun things.
That's not. Maybe someone listening around the world might think that's a weird thing. It's not a weird thing here at all to find firearms at an estate sale, and it's not like it's taboo or hidden. By all accounts, most of them, all of them are registered. They're completely legal. They're maybe stored safely to begin with in a complete, locked away, unloaded. It's not uncommon around here, and it's not really a scary thing. But for somebody listening around the world, they might be like, I can't imagine an estate sale where you find 60 vintage shotguns or something like that. Anyways, we're coming to the end of the segment. There's more to come. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've still got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. I gotta look towards the correct microphone here. We're sharing a mic. We're far away. We're not putting it to each other's lips in these COVID times. We're being safe. But yeah, we're talking to Ryan Kreipe. Do you head up the shop? I didn't even ask that.
I head up the shop here, and then I'm also the IT director for Braes Interfaith Ministries.
Awesome.
And I have my certification now in Certified Ethical Hacker, and working on my master's in cybersecurity and information assurance.
That is amazing. That's a whole nother podcast to get into. That's awesome. So we're at Braes Resale Shop, which is where again?
We are located at 10814 South Post Oak in Houston, Texas, at the corner of Willow Bend and South Post Oak in Southwest Houston.
And again, this will all be in the podcast description, so make sure you subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast in your favorite podcast player. Look for the red, white, and black color scheme. Ryan, what's the website where people can go if they're not in Houston that they can still donate to the shop and to these ministries?
Sure, that's braesresale.com, so that's spelled BRAES, resale, RESALE.com.
And remember, you can also go kind of see what interesting things they have at the shop there. And as we discussed earlier, they can make arrangements case by case, at least, to have something shipped to you no matter where you are in the world, figure out freight, all that kind of good stuff. So go visit the website, go peruse around, send some traffic over there. So I should not have eaten a French fry. I thought you were going to go on for another minute. So
sorry.
it's all right, a French fry. Anyways, so earlier we were talking about kind of the interesting things you come across on these. I'm just going to call them estate digs. I still can't get archaeology out of my mind when I think about this stuff because I'm coming from that kind of historical geek, retro tech kind of way. And even walking in here, I saw a few VCRs and scanners and different things that, you know, you might think VCRs right now, we're still, it's been several years since I would say most people would have a VCR in their home. But VCRs are, mark my words, they're going to become one of those things that we take for granted now, and you're going to see all over the place now. But you might want to store one away in a good, safe place because there will come a time, just like old vintage computers and old Macintoshes, they're not going to be ubiquitous. They're not going to be everywhere, and you're going to think, darn, I should have held on to that VCR. And you're going to go onto the internet and try to find a VCR in your area, and it's going to be impossible. That's coming up. That's going to come up fairly soon here. So I just was reminded of that, seeing a couple VCRs outside the door here. So we talked about interesting things you found on these archaeological estate digs. One of them being, oh gosh, you just said it in the break. I asked you, what book did you find, the first edition?
Count of Monte Cristo.
Have you found, to your knowledge, have you found any other first editions of fascinating books?
No, we actually did. We had a really cool book that I found interesting, but it was Mark Twain's kind of series of books and whatnot, and he had actually signed them. Now, obviously, it wasn't his actual signature, but it was kind of that printed in there type thing. When we first opened them, we thought we had found, just like a treasure trove of stuff and whatnot. But then we had it analyzed and looked at by an expert, and they said, no, unfortunately, this is just a print job. But it looked so real. It looked like somebody had taken a calligraphy pen and just written in there, and he had signed it himself. But we actually, the estate sale that we're bringing in this week had tons of Dickens originals, had the Jungle Book, cool. Just some really cool old books that had just been there forever. And I mean, these books are at least 50 years old, and the whole family in their own right, they were just really great collectors and readers of great books that they had spent time not only reading but and cherishing them as well. So it was just really cool to see just a whole room that was probably close to 20 by 20 just full of books. Wow. And obviously he had his legal ledgers and legal books and stuff like that. But yeah, it was quite a treasure trove and really cool things to find and go through.
Have you ever found anything that, you mentioned the Mark Twain books, but have you ever found anything that you thought, we need to contact a museum about this? Maybe this piece is something of such significance that it should go to some sort of public display.
We actually have a mandolin right here. I'm looking at it over my shoulder here. That is... We think it's from about the 1400s.
Really?
And it is really cool. It has these really cool inlays and really cool woodwork that you can tell that whoever crafted this instrument spent a lot of time on it and really just loved it. We have had somebody look at it. They couldn't come up with anything definitive, so we're looking for somebody else to kind of take a look at that. We also found this quill. It looks like an old quill set, to where it's a box, but they would have their different inks and ink wells, and they would obviously take their quill and dip it in there and then write. But we actually found it in a National Geographic magazine that had been out since the 80s, and it was just really beautiful, and we never could find any more information on it other than that, and no other provenance. But it was just it was just so unique and just so just special in its own right.
Right.
But it had all these gold inlays and whatnot. But it was just beautiful.
Do you ever come across like vintage cars much?
There was
with automobiles at all?
Not in the cool realm. There's no DeLoreans I've come across,
right.
Unfortunately. But we did recently just have an old Lexus. It was probably early '90s or something like that. But that's kind of the oldest that we've come across.
Right.
So.
It wasn't like a '67 Camaro.
No.
Like the kids didn't even know about it. It's just sitting back there, just kind of under a tarp and whatever. So, what before? Were there any kind of? Are you into old computers at all? I mean, there's ethical hacker and all that kind of stuff. But have you ever come across like a computer that like you knew? This is something special. This is some historical significance, or this was kind of like. Have you ever come across like Commodores or old Ataris or kind of stuff like that? I mean, I know you've sent me pictures of stuff, but like before I expressed interest, and I'm probably the only one who's expressed interest. Probably, I'm just going to take that bet right now. But have you come across kind of old stuff that you knew was kind of significant? Computer stuff.
Well, I do favor Johnny because he goes to church with me. So I always call you first. But actually we had an Atari and an old 100%. It had the controllers. It had a couple of games that we had here a little while ago. We sold all of it. It went really fast, and I couldn't believe how fast it went. And we actually did, kind of going back to what you're saying, we shipped everything out to them. I always come from a place of I would rather have $10 in my till that I can help a family out with than gouge somebody and wait for that $50 sale.
Right.
I
didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
I hear the butt music coming up. I want you to be able to plug the website one more time before we get out here.
Sure. It's braesresale.com. So that's BraesResale.com.
You are worthy of love. Yes, you too, Ryan. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of giving love and receiving love, and you're worthy of your own self-worth. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. If you'd like to sponsor Geek Therapy Radio, just go to geektherapyradio.com and let's talk.